Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. That's our goal, of course. I want to talk this morning with you about the power of the American presidency and Donald Trump. The first thing I want to do is to give Donald Trump a grade. It is a grade about the effective wielding of power. He gets an A. Donald Trump has done an incredible job in the months that he has been president of the United States. He has basically reformed the nature of the American presidency. And thanks to the Supreme Court, and its rulings, granted with a majority favoring Donald Trump, 6-3, Donald Trump has now established clearly that the American presidency is the most powerful institution in the United States. That has not always been true. We need to know that there have been wrestling matches between the Supreme Court and the president, between the Congress and the president. But what Donald Trump has proven in this period of time that he has been president in this second term is that effective use of power is what really makes the presidency so powerful. And there is no doubt about it. Donald Trump has been able to wield power effectively and dramatically. Now, for those of you who are Donald Trump critics, well, that's a whole other matter. But is there anyone listening to the sound of my voice who would not concede that Donald Trump has been triumphant on so many levels? We're watching it now in the United States Senate, where there will be a critical vote on that great, big, beautiful bill. Senator Tillis, who was one of the leading opponents within the Republican Party, gave a blistering speech on the floor of the Senate and has now announced he is retiring at the end of his term. And we can see from the way things are moving now that although Democrats are doing everything they can to prevent this so-called great, big, beautiful bill from passing, the odds are that the Senate will pass this bill. It will then go to the House where there will be revisions, and ultimately the Republicans in the House will give Donald Trump what he wants, and that is the ability to reform in Donald Trump's image where America will go over the next several years. Now, I personally am opposed to what Donald Trump is doing on so many levels. And you and I know that because we've talked about it here on this podcast. But this podcast is about the effective use of presidential power. Now, I've focused primarily on his domestic agenda, but let's point out that in foreign policy, Donald Trump has succeeded beyond wildest expectations. His decision to embrace the use of presidential power to order the use of American military might in the effort against Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon has been successful. Now, some would say, well, he overextended what he wanted to do with his claims, and in fact, the nuclear threat has not been obliterated. I believe that's probably true. But make no mistake, Donald Trump, through his actions, did an effective job of diminishing the threat of Iran's nuclear capability. And take a look at what happened at the NATO summit. We have seen NATO bow, if you will, to Donald Trump's will. They're kicking up their contributions. And in the Ukraine, we know that Donald Trump has been very ambivalent. And we have heard from the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, but we know that the Ukrainians are having a terrible time. The Europeans are standing firmly with them. The United States seems to equivocate. And the simple truth is the policy that is being pursued by the United States is being articulated clearly and precisely by Donald Trump. So let's be clear about this. Whatever you think of Donald Trump's policies, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, the simple truth is that Donald Trump is proving to be an exceptionally effective president in his second term. One of the reasons is planning. The people around him and the Heritage Foundation people have worked out a program which Donald Trump denied being acquainted with when he was running the 2025 project. But there is no doubt that that is the blueprint and that the people surrounding him in the White House are doing his bidding. The other thing that intrigues me is the complete pacification of the Republican Party. There may be some dissenters, but we have now learned that when you dissent from Donald Trump, well, you lose. Liz Cheney is a great example. Senator Tillis, another example. And you can go down the list of Republicans who chose to challenge in some way Donald Trump's will. So let's boil it all down. Yes, Donald Trump deserves an A when it comes to the exercise of presidential power. The Republicans in the House and Senate are now subject to Donald Trump's whims. I would not suggest to you that they get a high grade, but that's not the point. They've decided how they want to go. And so a statement made by Donald Trump Jr. on the Ellipse on January 6th echoes in my mind clearly. This is no longer the Republican Party. This is the party of Donald Trump. And that's precisely correct. We have a president of the United States who has, thanks to the Supreme Court, thanks to the organizing of his own forces, basically has unchecked power. Things that would have brought down previous presidents in terms of popularity, well, talk about a Teflon president. And I would suggest to you that what Donald Trump has done is a model. It is a model for how future presidents will try to affect their own administrations. Proper planning, proper administration, proper strength, and yes, a little bullying along the way. That's what will make this presidency so unique. And I will predict to you that when the books are written about Donald Trump, the emphasis on his second term and what he achieved so far in this term and the power he has exercised in this term will be an example unequaled since Franklin D. Roosevelt's first 100 days. Well, I've said it. I know some of you will be upset by it, but will you admit to me that it's true? And by the way, to my buddy Rob from Richmond, who writes me long emails asking for my commentary on everything, Rob, it's very clear. You support Donald Trump. I oppose Donald Trump. I cannot answer all of your missives with long, detailed explanations, but I can say this. You are correct in suggesting that Donald Trump is an extremely effective president. Make no mistake. For all of you who want to argue with me, please feel free to do so. But I believe that what I've said today rings true. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which is, of course, our goal. Let me indicate to you that you can give me feedback by going to LinkedIn, by going to my emails, by going to Facebook. A whole host of vehicles exist for you to offer me your feedback, and I really appreciate it. Yes, Rob, even from you, especially from you. And to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast. Gogo, thank you so much for everything you do to make sure that Around the Political World with John Rothman is heard. See you tomorrow morning right here for another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.